everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Leslie Matos. This is Birth by Faith. I'm a childbirth doula, and we are continuing our series on postpartum. Today we'll be talking about sleep, how important sleep is. I'm going to turn it over to my beloved co-host, Kristina.
Hey, I'm Kristina. I have a channel specifically on postpartum depression and supporting people with that phase of their life. And so, yeah, sleep is a doozy. And as I was saying to Leslie earlier, that it really is a form of torture that's used in war and for good reason, because you just become delusional. And I remember, two thoughts not even being put together, and you're just like, oh, it's tough. So sleep is really important. And I'd say by far the whole year after birth, that was the thing that I found the most difficult is sleep. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. You guys have heard me say applied knowledge is power, because let me just tell you, I had all this knowledge about how important moms getting sleep was, yet somehow when I was a first-time mom, I seem to have forgotten how important it was to get rest and how important it was for me to sleep. And I felt like that was the thing that I needed to sacrifice to make sure that my son had everything he needed. And so I didn't even adopt a rhythm or anything. And I pushed it really far to the point that my husband was like, we have to sleep train. You cannot continue like this. And at 5 months, we finally did. And to get me into the right mindset of it, I knew it was something I should have started like planning for at like 3 months. I should have already kind of had a game plan for what we were going to do. But at 5 months, I was still struggling with handling it. And it's because as a mom, I just kind of felt like, but they're my child. I should just let them sleep whenever they can. I don't want to hear him cry, and all of these excuses for why I couldn't sleep train him, why he couldn't go into his own room that we had already set up for him, why he had to stay near me, and all of these kinds of things. But I realized that once I did it, I became such a much better parent. I was able to do more with him and for him and for my family. And I was just a better version of me because I was able to sleep. So Kristina, you did this really well. You've had experience with this with multiple children. And so please share with us what that was like and what you learned, and how it was different for how you applied it. Because I'm definitely taking notes and doing it differently for this second one.
Yeah, I don't know if I did it well. And I do share more. I created a video on baby routines and sharing more about what I figured out in that. I was more of a parent that didn't want like hard, fast rules on you have to eat at this time, you have to sleep at this time. I had a lot of mixed emotions about the crying to sleep, and you have to kind of figure out your own way. And there's so many books you can read and so many information on the topic, and sometimes it can be confusing and even debilitating where you're like, I don't even know where to start. And so as a mother, you do kind of have to stumble through sometimes to figure out where it fits for you. And so with my daughter, it was just, I didn't want to use the soother. It was constantly on demand feeding like throughout the day and night. And she didn't develop very good sleep habits, and she constantly relied on us to help her fall asleep, whether it was like rocking her or rubbing her back. Even to this day, she'll be 10, and still I find she's not the greatest at falling asleep. So I really struggled through all of that. With both children, I did have them in my bed. That was something that I was okay with. I think sometimes, I don't know in like the States what the rules are around co-sleeping, and I don't even know what they are in Canada, but I know that you got to be really careful with it. And I think sometimes what happens with moms is in the middle of the night, they're exhausted. They've been woken up in the middle of the night to feed. They very easily fall back to sleep, and then the baby's still on them. And then they wake up like panic, like, oh my goodness. And they don't want to tell anybody because you're not supposed to. And I remember meeting moms, they're like, wait a second, you actually have your baby sleep in your bed with you? I'm not the only one? Oh, finally, like I can confess that to someone, because they think like, oh, it's bad, it's hush, hush, they're going to get in trouble, or like baby's going to get taken away or something. And so I really found it was so helpful having the baby in the bed. I did set it up so that it was safe. I remember talking to my care providers, okay, how do we do this with the blankets and my husband, and having, the edge of the bed, and like doing what I could to make it safe. But it just seemed so much more logical. I learned how to nurse on my side so that I can just roll over and nurse the baby. And then I'm still pretty much asleep during that period of time. So Ella didn't really leave our room till like 6 months old. And then she got transitioned in her own room. So I was just more like easygoing, go with the flow, no pushing. Like when it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But with my son, I envied the people that could just go put their kid in the bed and walk away and be done with it. That was not my experience with my daughter. So with my son, it's like, we got to get this kid nailed down. So I did end up doing the soother reluctantly, but it was more because my daughter was going nuts when Jack was crying. And so the midwife's like, for the sanity of everybody, maybe a soother would be a good idea, just so she's not getting triggered. Like, she was 5 at the time, so any little cry would really annoy her and set her off. So the soother did help. And I was really diligent with a routine. So it wasn't a hard, like, you have to go to bed at this time every day. It was more of a rhythm that had a sliding scale. And so a book that I read, Healthy Sleep Habits, Happy Child, something like that, there'll be a link, and also in the other video will be a link. But I learned that there's a 90-minute cycle. And so when they wake up, within 90 minutes, they need to be back down in bed again. Not you start at 90 minutes getting them to bed. At the end, they have to be in bed. And so I found this rhythm. And then when he'd wake up, then it was another 90-minute cycle. And so it would kind of move from day to day, but we would always just follow that routine. And I would be watching for his sleep signs. If you started to yawn, then you're almost too late in the window. So I found that really supported me in where in the day we were at. So I wasn't guessing, and I just really wanted to honor the sleep. I was almost like, I want to say, I'm trying to be careful of being politically correct. I want to say I was a sleep Nazi, but I don't know if that's okay to say, and you can cut it out if you need to. But I was like so anal and diligent about his sleep, and he actually slept like 23 hours a day in the beginning. Like, I always wondered, is this even normal? But I was just so on board with that sleep, maybe to the point where it even caused anxiety. And I would get upset at my daughter when she would try to wake him up. And that I was often very irritable in that, because I was so having to protect his sleep. But yeah, having the rhythm was important to me. And that just helped things go so much more smoother. And he was able to go to sleep to the point where even people that would watch him would be like, wow, he was so easy to put asleep. Now it's different. He's 4 and he's kind of all over the place, as you would expect developmentally. But for that baby time, like that was like the one thing I had to do differently with my son, was to have sleep be way more easier, because it was just a nightmare with my daughter. And yeah.
Yeah, and I would say, like, that's great. I think what I'm probably going to end up doing is taking your rhythm, the rhythm that you used from the beginning, just learning that. And we know the rhythm of what a child does, but that is exactly what you said, paying attention to those cues early on, so that baby, you're not waiting till baby's literally at the last sign of telling you, I'm tired.
Yeah.
You're catching it on the first sign, and you've already kind of have a little bit of a rhythm as to like what you do to prepare him for his sleep. Because they do, believe it or not, babies sleep over 16 hours a day when they're born, because they're growing so much, they're developing so quickly. And I know we have another video coming out where we talk a little bit more about the 4th trimester. So I will leave that for that video. But I want to say that that's really worked. So we'll be sure to link that book in the comments down below, so that you guys can check that out and check out that rhythm. I have a blog post on it that kind of goes through it for the first 2 months of life, kind of like how the rhythm changes.
Yeah.
And then I will also link what I did use at 5 months, which was absolutely amazing. And you guys have already heard me share about the sleep training that I used by Kiara Blazer at A Heavenly Welcome, and how my son now sleeps 12 hours a night and takes 2 naps. And so all at the same time, and very diligent about those. So I think combined, I think I've got a solution for this next one, for this little girl.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Kristina, for joining today for this video. We will see you all in the next one.
Awesome. Bye for now.